With the last of her strength, Lila staggered out of the chamber and into the night, the mansion collapsing behind her in a roar of stone and fire. The walls groaned as they caved in, taking with them centuries of secrets, blood, and horror. The black smoke billowed up, swirling into the starless sky, as if the mansion itself were exhaling its final breath. She had survived. But as she walked into the cold darkness of the forest, bloodied and broken, she realized that something inside her had changed. She was no longer Lila. She was something else now, something hollow. It hadn't always been this way. There was a time when Lila had dreams. A future. She had taken the job at Blackwood Estate hoping for a quiet place to start over, a new chapter away from the life that had chewed her up and spat her out. The loneliness of the sprawling mansion was meant to be a refuge, a place where the ghosts of her past couldn't find her. But Blackwood Estate had ghosts of its own, older, darker ones that lived in the shadows and fed on the weak. From the moment she arrived, the house felt wrong. Elias Blackwood, her employer, had greeted her with an unsettling calm, his eyes lingering on her as though sizing up a piece of meat. His charm was a mask, and Lila knew it. She should have left the moment she sensed something was off, but she stayed. She needed the money, the shelter, anything to avoid going back to the streets. The first few nights were uneventful, but it wasn't long before the strangeness began. It started small, scratches behind the walls, footsteps in the corridors when no one should have been there. Lila chalked it up to an old house settling. But the noises became louder, more deliberate. Then came the voices. Faint at first, like whispers riding the breeze, but soon they grew into desperate, agonizing cries. Someone was trapped. Someone was suffering. Driven by an instinct she couldn't ignore, Lila followed the sounds into the mansion's depths. The cellar door, once locked, now swung open as if beckoning her. She descended into the belly of the house, where the air thickened with the stench of rot and mildew. Every step echoed with the feeling that she was walking deeper into something ancient and wrong. At the heart of the labyrinth beneath the mansion, she found them, 3 women, their bodies broken, chained to the stone floor. They were barely human, their eyes dull and lifeless, their mouths twisted in silent screams. Their flesh was marred with cuts and burns, a testament to unspeakable suffering. That's when Elias appeared from the shadows. "I've been waiting for you, Lila," he had said with that same calm smile, as though the sight of tortured women was the most natural thing in the world. "You've proven yourself worthy. You are the last one. The final offering." Lila's stomach twisted in terror. She demanded answers, but his only response was to close the distance between them, his eyes gleaming with twisted devotion. "The Hollow Ones demand suffering, Lila. It is through pain that we reach the divine. These women," he gestured to the chained figures, "have given everything, but you. You will complete the ritual." Before she could react, robed figures emerged from the darkness, surrounding her, their faces hidden beneath hooded cloaks. They grabbed her, dragging her toward an iron slab at the center of the chamber. She screamed, kicking, fighting, but they were too strong. They strapped her down, the cold metal biting into her skin. Above her, Elias raised a ceremonial knife, chanting in a language that made the air vibrate with malevolent energy. She struggled against the chains as the first cut sliced through her skin. The pain was blinding, searing through her like molten steel. She screamed until her throat burned, but her cries were swallowed by the darkness. Elias's chants grew louder, the other women writhing in silent agony beside her, their hollow eyes fixed on her. The ritual was meant to summon something ancient, something terrible. Lila could feel it, an oppressive weight pressing down on her soul, a presence lurking just beyond the veil of reality. The Hollow Ones, Elias had called them. Beings older than time, who thrived on suffering and death. The mansion wasn't just a home, it was a gateway to their realm, a place where they could feed. As her blood dripped onto the altar, Lila felt her mind slipping. The edges of her vision blurred, the world warping into a nightmare of shadow and flame. She could hear the voices of the Hollow Ones, whispering her name, calling her to them. But in that moment of utter despair, something snapped inside her. It wasn't fear that gripped her anymore, it was rage. A cold, burning rage that filled the hollow spaces in her soul. With a strength she didn't know she had, she tore free of the restraints, grabbing the knife from Elias's hand. Before he could react, she plunged it into his chest. The robed figures rushed at her, but she fought like a woman possessed, slashing through them with a ferocity born of pure survival instinct. The chamber began to quake, the walls cracking as the air filled with an ear-splitting roar. The Hollow Ones had been awakened, but the ritual had been broken. Their rage tore through the mansion like a storm, ripping apart stone and flesh alike. Elias's body convulsed on the floor, his eyes wide with terror as dark tendrils wrapped around him, dragging him into the abyss. Lila barely made it out as the mansion collapsed in on itself, swallowed by the darkness it had summoned. Now, as she walked through the forest, the cool air biting at her raw skin, she felt nothing. No relief. No fear. Just emptiness. The Hollow Ones hadn't just taken Elias and his followers, they had taken something from her, too. Her humanity. Her soul. She was no longer Lila. She was something else. Something hollow. And in the distance, beyond the trees, the shadows stirred, whispering her name.